Friendships are beautiful things. Thanks to one of my friendships, I've been sent 2 of the Writer's Bibles for this show I fixate on so much, PAW Patrol. The first is a text-only document that has been put together with great care by Scott Craft and then updated a few times until around 2019. The second is much more detailed and lavishly illustrated and relevant up to March 2023, but as we will see, it's a lot sloppier and has various mistakes and internal contradictions, sometimes even on the same page. And although it is still credited to Scott Craft, I'd say the relative lack of attention to detail marks it out as decidedly not a Craft work. I plan to delve a little bit into how I feel these 2 documents have really influenced the show, but first, for a bit of fun, let's clear up some misconceptions using the info we have in these Bibles. It's pretty easy to see how this came about given her resemblance to Everest, but labeling Gasket as a husky has only ever been a guess. The Bible reveals she is in fact a Malamute. Now this maybe won't turn anybody's world upside down, but an age is actually given for Taylor Turbot. She's 7. Fascinating, I'm sure you'll agree. When a character doesn't speak, their name doesn't show up in the credits, so sometimes on the fandom wiki, someone just makes their best guess at spelling and it sticks. Such is the case for Busby, whose name is spelled with a Z, not only in the show Bible, but in the original scripts. Again, this was clearly just somebody's best guess on the fandom wiki, but Hubcap is not in fact a French Bulldog, he is a Boston Terrier. Given that a simple Google search will show you how difficult people find telling these 2 breeds apart, I think it was a reasonable mistake to make. And of course it would have helped if Spin Master actually gave us this information. This one's very similar to the situation with Busby. The character doesn't speak, so isn't listed in the credits, so people on the fandom wiki generally have to make their best guess, or rely on subtitles, which generally are also just somebody's guess. So just writing Jean-Claude, as most French people would, is totally reasonable. But in fact his name is a pun. It's a pun that's only apparent in writing, so it kind of went totally unnoticed here. Nonetheless, his name is supposed to have claw in it, as in a claw, like he has. But harking back to what I said about this Bible being a little sloppy, his name gets written in 2 different ways on the same page. Not something I've seen super often, but I occasionally see somebody guess Jake to be in his late teens. This isn't quite right though. While his exact age isn't given, he's described as a young man in his 20s. Okay, this one may be slightly more contentious. Honestly, until just a few days ago, I thought this was much more of a kind of open and shut case. To me, I thought people had only very flimsy reasons to call Tracker a Chihuahua. But because in the very early days, somebody had asked a Spin Master social media manager what his breed was, and they answered Chihuahua, that stuck. So when more and more information came out that he was in fact a potcake, people really resisted that. Some people just really don't like change. And yeah, okay, the Japanese website says he's a Chihuahua for some reason. And yeah, this card looks like a nice official piece of information. Well, until you realize it's just a fan creation made by Marshall Pup Fan. So when I saw that both the 2019 and the 2023 Bibles both said that he was a potcake, I was not surprised. I mean, sure, you can throw a bone to the theory that it was a late change by pointing out that the older version says small, but the newer version doesn't. But this made me feel pretty strongly that Tracker had always been meant to be a potcake. And sure, you can headcanon that part of his mixture, since potcake is a mixed breed, is Chihuahua. That's totally fine. And I would have been totally satisfied with that, if not for the fact that in the last couple of days, Spin Master opened their doors for this event they had going on in Toronto, and inadvertently revealed that in their own head offices, Spin Master say, Tracker is a Chihuahua. Ugh, come on guys, I'm trying to clear things up here. Anyway, bottom line is, the show Bibles and almost all official sources say potcake. Okay, so this is something that I have expressed pretty strongly in the last few seasons. There are so many opportunities to write really great stories, but the writers are just not doing them. They're just doing the most generic possible slop. And while that's still very much true in my opinion, I do think that this one page from the Bible, which was only introduced in the second version, it's not in the shorter 2019 Bible that's just built up from the original, is probably a major contributing factor to why the stories have gotten so bad. It's this page that's a guide for writers to submit their springboards, which are basically short summaries that can be developed into episodes. For one thing, they say don't pitch on settings for our theme episodes, Barkingburg, Rescue Knight's Castle, and Dino Wilds. Now it's possible they mean very specifically those three themes, Mission Paw, Rescue Knights, and Dino Rescue. Possibly, but by no means definitely, because we're going to see the Dino movie and then the Dragon movie. Just a guess, of course. But what writers are going to get from this point is don't pitch on settings for our theme episodes, period. So, that's going to drastically reduce the possibility anybody's going to pitch on Moto Pups or Big Truck Pups or Mighty Pups, and that may be a contributing factor to why we never see the guest pups again. Then further down there's this instruction that I at least signaled with a puking emoji face in a previous video, where it says Paw Patrol is a comedy action procedural. In other words, we don't tell stories with strong emotional through lines, i.e. the kind of stories where the other pups are making one pup feel left out. Even though, obviously that's kind of what happened in one of the most celebrated episodes the show's ever had. But I guess maybe somebody upstairs didn't like Pups Save a Friend. Either way, I can see how writers would err on the side of caution way beyond this specific example, and end up believing they can't write any episodes with emotional through lines at all, leaving us with the hollowed out husk of what Paw Patrol has become in the last handful of seasons. So yeah, I think it's reasonable to say, at least to some degree, this writer's Bible is responsible for some of the decline of the show. Though certainly not all of it, because most of the higher-ups, the script editors, the core writers' room, they're not really going to feel bound by this springboard that seems to be mostly for fresh contributors. And with that said, I also think I should point out that this Bible isn't necessarily something we should take as absolute truth. It has some problems, it has some errors. Haley Daly's name is spelled with a Y in Haley. Well, two Y's, I should say. But in the show itself, it has an I, so we should defer to what's actually in the broadcast version. Moby still has what must be a work-in-progress backstory, in which McSquiddly was gonna be a toy that essentially gets like interactive AI functionality. Something I'm pretty happy got scrapped. And on that note, just as Rubble does in the show, the bio for Moby refers to this little island as Junk Island. But for some reason it's actually in the Bible as Scrap Island. Just another of the document's kind of careless inconsistencies. Anyway, I think I've talked about this enough. Personally, I find this kind of document really fascinating, and I love to look through it for the minutiae. I hope in some way it's been interesting for you too, and I'll see you all again next time.